Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
January 18, 2020, the Ethical Edge edition. First up, from the New York Times, the 6-month head of the Grammys, Deborah Dugan, was removed 10 days before the ceremony. She has been in this job since August, and she was removed for allegations of being a bully at work, basically. What's interesting about this is 3 weeks ago, she filed a complaint of irregularities in the Grammy voting process and also financial irregularities. She sent a memo to the HR department at the Grammys, and then thereafter, someone filed an allegation against her, and the Board of Trustees put her on administrative leave. So it's interesting to see how this whistleblower is treated. She obviously was trying to shake things up. The prior president had been fired for intemperate remarks. So not what the Grammys needed, certainly 10 days out. Next up, the Department of Justice has found that, convicted a U.S. citizen who was a member of the Barbados Parliament and also served as the Minister of Industry for Barbados for accepting illegal payments, which violated the FCPA. He was, however, convicted of money laundering and conspiracy to commit money laundering. The interesting thing about this case is that the individual was, Donville Innes, is a U.S. citizen. So there was an open question about whether a U.S. citizen could receive a illegal bribe under the FCPA, and that question apparently has now been answered. Next up, another CEO behaving badly story. The CEO of Smith & Wesson has been fired for misconduct allegations. The misconduct was engaging in conduct inconsistent with a non-financial company policy. The company which owns Smith & Wesson, American Outdoors, did not provide specifics about the policy or when the alleged violation took place, nor did it respond to any comments. They wished the former president, James Debney, the best, and he's off to pursue other opportunities now. And finally, our lead story is about AB InBev and how they use the ethical edge to not only root out corruption, but make the company run more efficiently and at the end of the day more profitably. AB InBev started this process as part of their FCPA journey. They had an enforcement action several years ago, and they put in place an ability to monitor transactions. And this transaction monitoring has literally gone across the company. But what's critical about this transaction monitoring is that it does 2 things. Maybe 3. One, it makes the reporting system much more robust because this is literally a real-time transaction monitoring. If a case of product is sold in Mumbai, it can be seen in New York in real time. Number 2, it drops significantly the cost of ongoing monitoring and, more importantly, investigations when anomalies or red flags appear. But from my perspective, what makes this so interesting is the ethical edge that AB InBev has been able to take this to the next step and use this not simply as a cost savings and efficiency, but actually to drive greater profitability. And when you can wed a compliance solution to a business process to create a more profitable business unit, geographic region, or other return on investment, which is typically not seen from a compliance solution. Thanks so much for listening to today's edition of the Daily Compliance News. I hope you have a very safe and happy weekend and that your team may win. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks again for listening and joining us tomorrow.